Welcome, riding buddies. We're out here with Brad Lewis once again. Welcome, Brad. Checking out his 1981 KTM 125Lc. LC. Very unique, very rare motorcycle. And this particular one holds a very special spot in my heart. I love this thing. I absolutely love this bike. But before we get underway, make sure you've subscribed to John's Motorcycle Mania. It is a proven fact that subscribing to John's Motorcycle Mania will help you find that 125LC a lot easier that you want to buy. It's a proven fact. Now, they did a 1981 model, but it was air-cooled.
They actually did 4 separate models from the end of 79 to the start of 82 in an effort to catch up. The Japanese 125s had got away technology-wise.
And this is where we've mentioned it a few times with other videos, and I've actually done a whole video on the evolution of motocross bikes. Yep. Make sure you go back through my videos. There's a lot of other stuff there. Yep. But things were evolving so fast in especially from 75 through to about 85. That 10-year period was just insane.
Huge, yes.
So like Yamaha, we've already mentioned it before, Yamaha had the YZ125X, which was a interim model. Mako had the 74.5 GP. Yep. Your KTM had the 74.5.
Yep.
So it was happening all the way through. Suzuki were doing it.
Husky were fooling around with their long travel LTR.
Yeah, there was also, so every 6 months, quite often, some manufacturers releasing an interim model. That's what this is, isn't it?
The Japanese Big Four, they were getting away.
Yeah.
And KTM was the one and only European company that stayed the course. Husky gave up with their 125s pretty much. They were as slow as a wet week, but they still kept making them. And Mako actually gave up with their bike 125 altogether. Seems to me that 79 was also a pivotal year technology-wise. A lot of the European companies went ass up in 79 and into 80. Your SWM, your Fantics, your Galeras, Hercules, they
disappeared. Well, the Big Four Japanese manufacturers were building bikes that, were reliable.
Yes.
You could go and you didn't have to build the bike. Like a typical Euro bike in those, especially the early 70s, you'd go and buy a bull taco and then you would spend 2 months developing that bike to get it where you wanted it. Yes. Where the Japs went, here's your bike, and you pulled it out of the showroom and rode it.
Yeah, the Japanese bikes were almost at that point, really. I'm not a Japanese bike hater by any means. I actually still believe to this day the only good bike is one where you open the shed door and look at it and go, that's mine.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good bike. I don't care who makes it. If it does that for you, it's a good bike. It seems that this particular brand has found its way to me for some reason. And I must be a magnet for Austrian shit. I don't know how it works. But,
You've certainly accumulated a lot of them.
Man, oh man, have I got some KTMs.
But 1981, just to recap, Honda released their water-cooled CR125, which I have done a video on that particular model. Yamaha released the YZ125H with the radiator up the front.
There, Well, your RM125X of 81.
This thing comes out more or less halfway through 81. They've done away with the air-cooled engine and they've released this new water-cooled engine. Now, these things, as I've said at the start of this video,
I think Australia only got 10, I think. It wasn't.
And you've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
And
sad, isn't it?
But finding these for sale anywhere in the world, they very rarely pop up. There wasn't that many of them produced overall. No. But so basically what they've done is I suppose back in these early days of water cooling, they've gone, we've got to put a radiator on it. How are we going to protect the radiator? Yamaha,
up the front there.
Kajiva did it.
Yes, the WMX.
Yes, the SWMs. There was a few of the Euro manufacturers, and Yamaha put the front radiator up in the front headstem. Honda they sort of did what is now considered the normal radiator. Suzuki did the same thing. They were not as they are now, but the concept was what is used these days. KTM's gone, we don't want a stick going through this thing. So they've laid the radiator flat.
Under the tank.
Under the fuel tank. It is literally up in here.
You can just see it.
You can just see it. But that was to get it protected.
Yep.
Because it didn't have massive airflow, so the Yamahas and all the ones with them up the top here, good airflow. Honda and Suzuki with their radiator down the bottom, good airflow. Up here, not the greatest airflow. So they went and did still got some fins
Yes.
on the cylinder, which also a couple of the other Euro manufacturers did the exact same thing. 1981, KTM's got their great air-cooled engine because it
80,
81.
RV,
It was a great little bike, but it was rapid. They were all just so changing so much.
Yep.
The engine itself is very modified off that same engine, though, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So it's still So you got the half case read on the air-cooled engine that they still run on this one, but it's water-cooled.
Yes.
And I remember many years ago, you with this particular bike pulling the engine apart and went to pull the water pump off it, and the impeller was actually not attached to the shaft.
Yeah, to let go.
So the impeller wasn't even spinning.
It was freewheeling. Yeah.
And it never had a cooling issue. It never changed one bit.
I've since found 3 or 4 versions of that same problem. So I make a better version of that now.
Yeah.
Again with the plastic 3D thing. But
So, and if you haven't seen my video on Brad's parts that he manufactures, make sure you check that out, because Lewis Brothers Racing, all the information's in there. I don't want to go into it this one because it's just too long. It just gets too long.
Yeah.
But the 81, it's now water cooled, but it's not just the engine. Forks. What have they done with the forks?
They went to the new 38s. 3 versions of the 38 Pifero forks. You had the 125s at a certain length and about 20 mil longer with the 250s, and another 20 mil longer with the big long 495 ones. They're all 38s, just longer chrome tubes.
Longer tubes. But so your air-cooled
Had 35s.
125 had 35 mil forks. This has got 38s.
Yes.
The frame, what's different with the frame? So the frame is carried over. Yep. The fuel tank is very different.
It's got room.
Because they had to get the radiator.
Yep.
It's bolted to under the rear spine of the frame.
Yeah, with an air cavity.
With a massive big air cavity in there. So
the tank doesn't hold much.
Yeah, so the tank looks as though it would be about a 9-litre fuel tank.
Probably about a 6.
Yeah, they lost so much. But it made it a great little bike. Probably, and I remember getting caught with this, trail riding this thing, this exact bike, trail riding, paint myself into a corner. On a Jap bike, you just go, and flick it around and off you go. Turning circle on these things is not measured in meters or centimeters, they are measured in acres. So you've got to learn how to do a pivot turn, or just get off and push it. Because once again, this thing is tall.
Yep.
Which is quite ironic, because I don't think Brad's ever been any taller than what he is now, and he's always got involved with the tallest motorcycles. I can never understand that logic, but
Me either.
But this thing, the turning circle, don't get yourself painted in a corner, because doing a pivot turn on one of these things,
when the clutch didn't work,
and it still had that same KTM issue with clutches, is impossible. You've got to get off, work yourself around, sling it around, and ride back out, because you won't turn it around. But when you're riding it on a motocross track,
what's the problem?
I never ever noticed an issue.
No, still not really.
It's just if you paint yourself in a corner, that's when it becomes
tight stuff.
Yeah, really tight, and it's definitely not a trials bike.
No, it's
it's definitely not a trials bike.
No.
Now, all these years later, with all your stuff that you make and all the rest of the development that you've done over the years, and once again, make sure you check out that video about what Brad actually makes. What have you done to this to keep it as a race bike and to keep it reliable and keep it on the track? I noticed the ignition's different.
Yeah, the motor plat finally went off.
A motor plat fail?
Yeah.
No.
Very unusual. Yeah,
no, motor plats never fail.
It had an internal rotor like your KT Yamaha kart.
Yes.
Yep. 520 odd gram. It's now got a 900 gram external
rotor.
One of our same kits. What would fit a 250, for example. 910 grams, which is pretty much what the original external Matterplats weighed, which was on everything from 175s, 250s, 350s, 400s, 420s, 390s, 495s, 540s, 550s, all still ran that same 900 gram flywheel. So it's either too bloody light for a 500, and it's right,
too heavy for a 125.
Okay, so with that ignition kit on there, with no jetting changes, no pipe changes, no anything else, it's now got more bottom end, more mid-range and more top.
Yep, so more power all the way through just by going to your ignition system.
Yep, it's on its second crankshaft conrod kit now. The original crank lasted about 25 years. It's on its second piston, and it's probably only its third set of rings. And there was a time there, and you would recall, where we rode this thing every weekend.
Walk up to it, do the old Victor, push the tickler down, let the fuel run out everywhere. Very environmentally friendly carburetor, a Bing. Couple of kicks and away you'd go, and you'd ride it all day. Put a couple of tanks of fuel through it because the tank doesn't hold much fuel.
Yep.
So you put 2 or 3 tanks of fuel through it.
Yep.
Put it in the shed. Get it out next week and go again. It's just absolutely bulletproof. But so you've done.
And it's still an original rear sprocket, and I think that's still the original front sprocket. So there you go. That's a 1981. So back in that era, KTM used to use a water treatment to harden their aluminium. They used to do the swing arms the same. I'm not sure they still do it today, but something like 40 different temperature climbs over 3 days and then back again. Made those rear sprockets almost indestructible.
Yep. You basically changed the sprocket because you want to change the ratio.
Yes.
You didn't change it because it was worn out.
Yeah.
You'd stretch chains and throw chains away left, right and centre, but sprockets just never wore out.
I've probably gone through 30 or 40 change over the years, but
sprockets are still the same.
Still originals, updated brake shoes and so forth.
So you've done your clutch plate modification. Any other modifications to the clutch? The arm, anything like that?
No, it's actually still got the bad mechanism, but because you haven't got all that, again,
that preload,
that enormous spring tension that you're battling against, the plastic's actually staying halfway decent in this case. The 495s and the 420s, and the 250s, they're the ones that need the help.
Yeah.
Russell Brown actually does a really nice aluminium casting for them with one of our 390s, I think, and it's one finger also. It's unbelievable. Actually, the first time we hooked it up, Daryl comes in and says, "When are you going to hook the cable up?"
Well, that clutch, that clutch there.
Yeah.
I would run that as a single finger.
Yeah, it is.
Single finger clutch. Yeah. That's just unbelievable. Knowing what it used to be like.
Yeah. So VTRing is sort of what I do with it now because my back's stuffed and my knees are stuffed, but
just take it out. Once again, throw it off the trailer.
Yep.
Kick it in the guts. Go and ride it at the trail rides. Then ride it home. Put it back in the shed.
And the funny thing is, with this particular cycle, because I've had it almost new, it was only about 6 months old when I bought this one, believe it or not. So that's, that was, I was only think about 19 or 20 years old then. So
that was a long time ago.
I've had this one a little while. Daryl actually thinks that I should sell every other KTM I've got and just keep this one because this is the one that I seem to gel with. So they're original shocks and the original springs.
Yep.
And they've never actually been rebuilt, believe that or not.
There's not even all run out of them.
Not even all run out of them. I've had to rebuild them about half a dozen times, and they've got upgraded springs and tweaks to the damping rods and fool around with the oil levels and the oil viscosity to get what we're looking for.
Yeah.
It looks like they're leaking again. So.
Pull them apart again.
But the O-rings around the head stem, that's another one of the KTM perks of that era. But generally, it's been it's paid for itself a million times over. It owes me nothing.
Yeah.
Fun factor,
It's just a great little bike.
Been a great little motorcycle.
This is one of the bikes that I would really love to get my hands on one day, but I know I'll never get one because you just can't find the bloody things.
You might have to build you one.
Yeah, you've probably got enough parts to build another one.
I'd have enough to make another one.
Okay, so that's been a look at Brad Lewis's 1981 KTM 125Lc. Thank you so much, Brad, for all your videos. Make sure you go back. There is a bunch of other videos there on a lot of Brad's bikes, on Lewis Brothers Racing. Check them out. Also, go back even further. There's a lot of other videos in there as well about vintage bikes and events and all sorts of things going on. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.